An entire episode dedicated to saying, I told you so. Okay, I am just kidding, but seriously, truly, I have been a huge fan of Green River Wheated for a long time. A lot of you guys probably know that. If you've been listening to the podcast before, you've probably heard me rave about it. I think it is wondrously underpriced and fantastic. But here's the thing. Here's why I'm saying I told you so. Not actually, but you get the idea. The New York World Spirits Competition said it is the best bourbon in the world this year. So I'm going to dive into what that competition is, a couple of things about the competition, what they decided, and then, of course, we're going to review it ourselves. We're going to round it out with a review ourselves. So this episode is going to dive a little bit into like the technicalities of competitions, especially specifically the New York World Spirits Competition, which I'm pretty sure has the same rules as the San Francisco World Spirits Competition, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm actually excited because this was like an opportunity for me to research those competitions. I've always just kind of known as much about them as the next guy. But people tout those medals a lot. And if you're walking through a liquor store, you probably see double gold, gold, silver. You probably see that a lot and don't know what it means. I didn't know what it meant for a super long time. And it's probably good if you do know, if you do understand kind of the statistics behind it and things, which we're going to dive into. But first, please, please, please check out the Patreon if you want free merch, if you want bonus content, weekly vlogs, monthly podcasts, all kinds of awesome content, and of course, some fantastic giveaways. I think at the time that this episode comes out, we will be a couple days away from picking a winner for the original grain watches that we're going to give away. Do I have them in here? I better just go grab it and show you real quick. So right around the middle of November, I've got two of these bad boys thanks to Original Grain. First of all, go check out Original Grain. They have awesome watches. And I'm giving away two of these. This is their Whiskey Barrel Espresso watch. Gorgeous watch, not an inexpensive watch, a very nice high-end watch. And I have two of them, and I'm going to be giving those away round about the middle of November, which I think will be just a couple days after this episode comes out, if I am doing my math correctly. So all you got to do to enter is join the Patreon, and I do giveaways like this every single month. Let me get these out of the way. So I'm doing giveaways like that all the time. So go check out the Patreon page, and you're also going to get bonus content. You're going to get merch when you sign, well, not when you sign up, but on a monthly anniversary. So it's just, there's a lot of cool stuff on there, and that support is crucial. It is crucial for keeping this podcast going. I cannot thank my patrons enough. Okay, soapbox over. Let's talk about competitions for whiskey spirits. Or whiskey and other spirits, I should say. Also, a lot of people are going to be squinting at their screen wondering what my cup says, because I've had that happen with, I just grab whatever coffee cup I have upstairs, and today just so happened to be Chilling with the Gnomies. I hope you guys can see that. It's got a picture of a couple little gnomes on it, and it's Chilling with the Gnomies, and that is just what I grabbed today. Fantastic coffee, homemade. All right, let's talk about spirits competition. So first of all, the thing that I really want to establish with this episode is that there's lots of rumors about spirits competitions, and I'm not even really going to cover some of the big rumors. I'm going to cover what I was able to actually find online. There's rumors about whether it's almost pay to play with some of them, whether the medals actually mean anything, how the judging is handled. There's some rumors about that I came across online, and some of it's a little bit overhyped, I would say. Some of it is overplayed. Some of it is, I think some brands, to some extent, know that they can enter. They'll get some kind of a medal, and then they can advertise that they have that medal. They're not guaranteed a medal, by the way. You're not guaranteed a medal, but I think they know, or I don't think you're guaranteed a medal, but the probability of getting a medal, as we're going to talk about here in a minute, is kind of high. And so I think people know that they will get some kind of a medal, and so they enter and they advertise that they have that medal, etc. The reason that I say that is not to bash these competitions, but to say that I'm going to walk through what the medals mean and how many percentages of people win each of those medals, because it's important that you know which is which. So I don't want to portray like the competition is in bad faith. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is the use of advertising that people do after the competition with the medals that they've gotten. I think that is a little bit in bad faith sometimes, and sometimes they might not even know. They might just be like, this is sweet, I got a silver medal, this is awesome, let's advertise it, you know? So it's one of those things where I just think the communication is very poor, and I think that's why this is important for us to talk about. I also would love to talk to an expert about what happens at these competitions and what the specifics behind these rumors are, if they're allowed to disclose them. So I might do that in the future, but for right now, we're going to stick to the public knowledge and what these competitions mean and what you should know if you see it on a bottle when you go to a liquor store. So just be careful with, and this is also, I'm just speaking to the New York World Spirits Competition, which I think has the same rules as the San Francisco World Spirits Competition, if I'm not mistaken, but there's lots of spirits competitions. So you have to be careful. If something says it's got a medal, where is it from? If it was rated blank 95, or if it has a medal, who rated it? You have to know those things. Anybody could get their friend Jim Bob to set up, sorry if your name is Jim Bob, that's what came to mind, to get your friend to set up an LLC, make it a spirits competition, and then give you a gold medal. Anybody could do that. So you have to see where it is from. Is it from a competition that actually knows what they're doing? And I feel like New York World Spirits and San Francisco World Spirits, this is just from me talking to people, I feel like they are some of the more renowned, credible competitions. I don't know that for sure. But let's talk about what they do. So first, I'm just going to read an excerpt from the website for the New York World Spirits Competition and explain what it says they're doing. The New York World Spirits Competition brings the Tasting Alliance's prestigious blind judging process to the East Coast. With a keen focus on regional market trends and consumer preferences, New York World Spirits Competition serves as a premier platform for brands to gain industry recognition and credibility in one of the world's most influential spirits markets. Judged by a panel of esteemed experts, this competition not only celebrates excellence in spirits, but also provides brands with invaluable exposure to key trade professionals, distributors, and discerning consumers in the dynamic New York market. So you can even see kind of with their excerpt there, it almost sounds pay to play. Like it's almost like, I'm pretty sure it costs money to enter this competition. Let's Google that real quick. But assuming it does, it's almost like they're saying like, hey, pay us and you're going to get advertisement. Does it cost money? Let's just see what Google AI tells us. Cost money to enter the New York World Spirits Competition. I'll just abbreviate it there. World Spirits Competition costs money with the 20. Yes, so there is an entry fee. According to Google AI, it's $500 per product. That's just what Google's AI brought up. But it does cost money. So you can see how it almost kind of seems like, hey, give us your money and you're going to get some advertising. I'm not trying to put that on them. I'm just saying that's what the messages is saying. That's what the messaging is saying. So anyhow, so that's the competition. And I got this fantastic article. I found it online. It's at homebar.io. I want to give them all the credit because I thought this article was so comprehensive and good. But I'm just gonna hit the major highlights that I think it's important for you to know when you're walking through a liquor store. So the first thing they mention is lots of medals are given out, and here's what you need to know. Okay, so they took this from the 2022 competition. And they gathered this data. So this is according to homebar.io. There were around 5,000 entries, which means that about 4/5 or 80% of all bottles entered into the competition won a medal. So right away, if you enter, you got an 80% chance of getting some kind of a medal that you could advertise at a liquor store. So that's kind of, and that's not odds that they give you. That's just what it shook out to according to 2022 data. Okay. So, looking down at each type of medal. So, I'm going to start actually at bronze. The article goes the opposite direction. Bronze medals are given to, quote, well-crafted spirits that are commercially sound, modestly attractive, and free from significant flaws. These winners are excellent examples of their categories, end quote. That's what a bronze medal is. And about 10% of all the entries from this data that they pulled received the bronze medal. Silver medals. Here's where we're going to see some subtle nuance here. So bronze, we said well-crafted spirits, commercially sound. Silver, quote, outstanding spirits that show refinement, finesse, and complexity. These winners are among the best examples of their categories. So these are bronze is a medal, but it's almost like you're good. Like you're meeting your category. You're not a bad whiskey. I'm just going to keep using whiskey because that's like what I talk about clearly. Silver is like you're a good whiskey. Like you're a little bit above. You're above average. And roughly 38% of all entries from the data that Homebar got were awarded silver. 38%. That's a big chunk, right? Now gold. Gold is a weird one. So gold is kind of like saying a step above silver, but not double gold. That's where it's a little weird. So gold is exceptional spirits that are near the pinnacle of achievement. These products set the standard for their categories. So gold is like the top. It's like the best. But about 19% of the entries were awarded gold medals. From this data. So keep in mind, when you say the top, you're saying the best. You're actually saying out of everything entered, the top 20%, like the top fifth. We're not talking 95th percentile. We're not talking 99th percentile. We're just talking top 20%, 19% actually, to be more specific. And then double gold. Oh, yeah, I actually forgot. So, no, not the top 20%, because here's why. Because double gold medals are awarded to entries that receive a gold medal from every member of the judging panel. So if every judge says, I think this is top tier, you become double gold. And 14% of all entries are double gold. So gold is like saying, okay, the majority of judges think that you're gold. Double gold is saying all of the judges think that you're gold. So we have to take that 19% and add that 14% to get 33%. So gold and double gold make up the top 33%. So it's like the top third. It's like the ones that are really good, and you would say like this is a really good whiskey, but it's not necessarily like the top of the top of the top. Because double gold to me sounds like this is like the absolute best. And then you kind of see it a lot, and you're like, why are there so many double golds out there? Well, that's why. So 14% of all entries from this data were double gold. Now, I don't want to discredit this at all. I'm not stating an opinion about whether that's good or bad. All I'm trying to do is say to know that. So like for me, when I hear double gold, I like with what double gold actually is, it's actually that every single judge gave it a gold rating. So every single judge thinks that it is exceptional. To me, that's like really good, but it's not the same context as a gold medal Olympian, for example. A gold medal Olympian is the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. That's just phenomenal at what they do. So that's why I want to clarify. That doesn't mean that this is bad, because if I see double gold, that means that every single person who judged it thinks that it's an exceptional spirit. That's pretty darn good, right? But it's just something to keep in mind. And so then you take all of those double golds and you judge the double golds for best in show. So this year specifically, they took all those double gold winners, one of which was Green River's Wheated Bourbon, and they judged them, they ranked them to come up with what was the best out of those double golds. That is what Green River Wheated Bourbon won this year. It won the accolade of the best bourbon in the world, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check because I wrote it down specifically. The best bourbon in the world this year. So that is what Green River Wheated won. By the way, about a $35 bottle of whiskey. So pretty, and they're doing this blind. They're not considering price as far as I know. So that is a huge, huge accolade for a bottle of this price, which makes me think maybe it's going to become hard for people to find. We'll see. But that is what I want you to understand about the medals. That is what I did not fundamentally understand before I did the research for this. So I thought that was very interesting. So there's a Forbes article that announces that Green River Wheated is awarded the best bourbon in the world this year. I will link that down in the description, along with that Homebar article. I'll link that down in the description. So now let's talk about Green River Wheated. So it won, right? Green River Wheated won. So that means they judged however many. In 2022, it was apparently about 5,000. However many different spirits. And then out of however many of those were bourbon in the bourbon category, I have no idea. Out of that section, a certain number won double gold, which is like exceptional, very good. And then out of all the double gold, Green River Wheated won the competition. That is what happened to get Green River Wheated here, okay? That's what we're talking about. So let's talk a little bit about Green River Wheated. What is it? I apologize if you're like, why does he go wheated? If you want to know the actual answer to why I say wheated like that sometimes, is because when I do auto captions on like TikToks and Instagram Reels, if I say weeded, it does weeded, like weeds in your garden, WEEDED, and that is not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say wheated. So sometimes I say wheated because I get used to saying it in my short form videos so that the auto captions come out correct. Anyhow, a little peek behind the curtain for you. I nearly forgot to tell you what the judges said about Green River Wheated. So this is from the Forbes article that announced it. A warmly inviting and richly textured bourbon, opening with playful aromas of peppery spice and s'mores, followed by a palette of honeyed grains, oats, and creamy butterscotch, layered with hints of oak and a lively barrel tang, all leading to a smooth, long finish where grain fades into soft honey, gentle spice, and warm barrel notes for a satisfying close. That is what they said they really appreciated about it. Now let's jump over to Green River. Once again, that's from the Forbes article that will be linked in the description. Green River says, our wheated bourbon leads with a beautiful peach and caramel aroma coupled with apricot and cinnamon. On the palate, you'll find toffee, pastry, and hazelnut that guide towards a honeyed finish that's smooth and balanced. The wheated expression lends itself to easy drinking while holding its own distinct character. So you can see there's actually some pretty heavy overlap there. We're talking about honeys, toffees, caramels, oats, those sorts of flavors. Now, Green River throws in a little bit more fruity, so like some peach, some apricot, whereas the Forbes article or the judges from the competition threw in a little bit more black pepper, a little bit more spice. So I find that like an interesting dichotomy there. But overall, pretty big overlap. Everybody's got different taste buds. What is Green River Wheated? That's a great question, Chris. So, as I mentioned, this is about $35 a bottle in Ohio. I think it's between probably 30 and 40 most places that you find it. It is 90 proof, so this is a lower proof. This isn't cask strength or anything like that. And what I love about Green River Wheated and normal Green River, Green River uses this mash bill for their two standard bourbons, this one and the standard recipe that's not wheated. The standard recipe is 70% corn, 21% rye, 9% malted barley. So it's like a pretty standard amount of rye, like on the higher side of rye for a recipe for bourbon. And what I love is they do wheated bourbon in the very traditional sense. They just say, we're taking that rye directly out and we're replacing it with wheat. Sometimes you'll still have some rye, you'll still have some wheat. Sometimes you'll have a different amount of corn between your rye and your high rye and your wheated bourbons. But in Green River, they're saying 1-to-1 swap out. We're taking out the rye, we're putting in wheat. So the wheated bourbon, what we're talking about today, is 70% corn, 21% wheat, 9% malted barley. So that is what is going into making this bourbon. And I've already done an episode about it before where I'm tasting it versus the standard version. But I want to go through one more quick tasting of it, and I want to try to be as unbiased as possible. It's been a long time since I've really dove deep into this whiskey. Because, here's the thing. I think, and I'm going to give an official answer after I do the tasting. We'll see what I say. But my suspicion is, I think Green River Wheated is a fantastic bourbon that I have been saying for years is beyond its price range. What I don't think is that it's the best bourbon in the entire world. I think that is a wild thing to say. I mean, you're throwing it in there with all different price ranges and different types of bourbon, but I do think it's wildly exceptional. I do think it is well worth I have a bug flying around in here all of a sudden. I do think it is well worth the money that they're asking for it. It is Nat season in Ohio, if you can see it on the camera. I don't know if you can or not, but it's that time of year where they're all dying, and so they find their way into the house. Gnat, fruit fly, depends on what you say it, depending on where you are. Okay, so one last sip of coffee, then we're switching to whiskey. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pour up a glass here. So I'm going to try to be as unbiased as I can, like I said. What I've experienced in the past with Green River Wheated, this is just my bias going into it. I love it. I think it's very sweet and mellow and conventionally smooth, like the thing that when people say smooth, I know it's an overused term, but when they say smooth, this is what they're talking about, I think. It's not very abrasive. It's not very aggressive. And I think that's probably why it was judged so well at the competition. But I also think It's a great, phenomenal price, of course. So I want to be clear about that, but it is a $35 to $40 bourbon. Maybe it drinks like a $45 to $50 bourbon, probably. But even in that price range, you still get a little bit of a harshness. You still get a little bit of a what's the word that I'm looking for? Like a filmy feeling on your tongue on occasion. That's just the experience I've had in the past. Now, that could be bias, that could be palate condition, that could be anything. So we're going to go through and see what it is that I actually think about it. Cheers. On the nose, peach is very apparent. I can totally see that. Definitely like a cinnamon peach vibe, maybe like cinnamon peach oatmeal, something like that. A little bit of a black pepper, a little bit of like alcohol actually coming through that maybe you could attribute it to a black pepper, but I'm gonna say that I think it's almost definitively a little bit of alcohol on the nose. Let's dive into the palate. So here's what I'm getting so far. Could definitely be some bias from reading these notes. I feel like I'm getting way more of the peach and the stone fruit than I usually get, but there's definitely a little bit of a brown sugary molassesy type flavor that kind of is like burnt sugar. It kind of leaves a little bit of a bitterness on the palate. I can still taste it a little bit on my tongue there. And then on the finish, after you swallow it, it gets a little bit more ashy, a little bit more charred. That sort of a flavor comes through a bit more. So pleasant, especially in the beginning. So like sweet and pleasant. Huge fan of this whiskey, and you're gonna hear that as I continue to review it. So what I'm gonna do, I don't want to do a blind tasting for this episode. Maybe I'll do a separate thing dedicated to just like wheated bourbon blind tastings. But what I want to do, and I haven't done this in a while because I've been doing so many blind tastings, is just a side-by-side tasting. So I am going to grab some Maker's Mark, similar price range, about $10 less, I want to say, and kind of the standard for wheated bourbons, right? Because it's in the same category. It's wheated, and they're one of the originals. They're not the original, but they're an old wheated bourbon, right? So I'm gonna grab some Maker's Mark and do a little bit of back and forth comparing. Oh, wow. It is immediately apparent when you go from Maker's Mark to Green River on the nose. Maker's Mark is a lot more cherry, a lot more red fruit that versus like the stone fruit, the peach and the apricot that the Green River has. A lot more sugary sweet versus like fruity sweet that the Green River has. Here's something immediately apparent, and I think this is probably points for Green River. The Green River has more of an herbal, almost oat-like, grainy type of a flavor on the nose, type of a smell to it. And I think that adds complexity to it. You can pull a lot more out of it so far. So on the nose, I understand why Green River would get more bonus points for sure. The Makers is a little bit more one-dimensional. Okay, so going through the palate, I think it's become clear to me what I mean when I say that Green River is a phenomenal bourbon, but I don't think it's the best in the entire world. Here's why. Here's what's starting to occur to me. So on the palate, Maker's Mark is clearly more one-dimensional, clearly more of a simple sweet, whereas the Green River has more going on. Every time you come back to Green River, you can pick something different out. Very complex, very tasty. I would say Maker's Mark also tastes more like alcohol than the Green River. The Green River has like a nice flavor to it and not as much alcohol. The Maker's Mark, I think I said Green River just now. Green River, nice flavor, not a lot of alcohol. Maker's Mark, nice, simple, sweet flavor, but alcohol comes through strong, especially on the finish after you swallow it. So, undoubtedly, Green River is a better tasting bourbon using those sort of objective standards, right? As objective as I can be. What it made me notice, though, hold on. Tried to get that stupid nap, but I didn't. What it made me notice is I'm noticing how much alcohol the Maker's Mark has compared to its body, and it helped me to put into words where I think the Green River falls short of being the absolute best in the entire world. And what I mean by that is huge flavor, great flavor, approachable, smooth, mellow, not nearly as much alcohol flavor as the Maker's Mark, but you can still taste the alcohol. I would like to see from the best bourbon in the world, I would like to see more body. And I want to be clear, like I'm holding this to the highest possible standard right now because I absolutely love Green River. If you gain anything from this episode, it should be Green River wheated bourbon, worth trying out. I think it absolutely is. I think it's a phenomenal bourbon. And I think what makes it better, what made it probably stand out amongst the others that it was ranked amongst, was probably how much complexity it has, how sweet it is, and how approachable it is. But what I think was missed was there could be more body, which I would not expect from a bourbon this price, to be abundantly clear. I would not expect more body from a bourbon under $40, under $45 probably. But for the best in the entire world, I would expect a little bit more body with a little bit less alcohol flavor to it. That's, I think, what I've been trying to put into words. Okay, I just did some looking, and I can't find anything to say that they separate out price ranges. I was like, okay, what if I'm being dumb here and they actually do separate price ranges? I can't find anything to say that at the competition, that it's like, oh, maybe the top of this price range was $40. Because if that was the case, Green River Wheated, killing it. It's one of my favorites under $40. But no, if you're talking best in the entire world, if you're talking any price range, that's where I don't think that that's accurate. I think it almost, to me, here's a guess. This is a complete guess. This is not backed up by anything other than my palate, right? My guess is that you had some non-bourbon drinkers, some non-bourbon lovers in the judging panel who, this is very approachable, very mellow. This is like, if you're a beginner, you gotta try it, right? You're either gonna love it or you're gonna hate it, because if you don't like wheated bourbons, if you don't like that extra sweetness and mellowness, then you're probably gonna hate it. But if you like that sweetness and mellowness, you're gonna love this. And to me, it almost seems like it was judged by a panel of like a mix of experienced people and inexperienced people who, at least specifically for bourbon, I'm talking specifically for bourbon, maybe they're phenomenally experienced in other categories. I have no idea how that works or how they pick their judges, but that's the impression that I get. I get the impression that this was like the best bourbon in the world for people who don't drink a ton of bourbon. So that's kind of, from tasting it, that's what I feel like. So anyhow, once again, none of this is to slander the competition. None of this is to slander Green River by any means. I love Green River. I've probably said that too many times, actually. But it's just to give you guys an idea of advertising and how to consider the results of these competitions, especially the medals. I think the medals are more important. They're more useful on a daily basis. So once again, a bronze medal is like you're okay. You're not bad for your category. Silver medal is like you're a cut above the rest. You're pretty good for your category. Gold medal is you are exceptional for your category, and double gold means that everybody voted you exceptional for your category, like setting the standard for your category. So I think that's more useful information when you're walking through a liquor store. But also, this shines a light. This gives a little bit of a perspective of who might be judging these, because it just comes across as maybe people with a little bit less experience drinking bourbon. Not that, and that's where it's hard, because how do you judge the world's best bourbon? If you have only bourbon fanatics, then it's going to be the world's best bourbon for bourbon fanatics. But the world's best bourbon needs to be the best for people who are huge fans of bourbon, people who are brand new to bourbon, people who just have like a passing fancy for bourbon. That's it's one that appeases all three groups of people. So maybe that makes Green River the best bourbon in the whole wide world. But I think there would be a better option out there if we're considering all price ranges. But the moral of the story, if you're considering buying the Green River Wheated, is yes, I think it's fantastic for its price range. I think the only way you're going to hate it is if mellowness in bourbon to you isn't exciting enough to pull your mind away from the alcohol, which does happen sometimes. Other bottles like this can be Redwood Empire, 1792, Evan Williams, 1783. Those are bottles that are very mellow and approachable, and for some people, it's not... Spicy is not the word that I'm looking for. Punchy. It's not punchy enough to distract from the alcohol. So if you're one of those people, you might not like this. But if you want something sweet, approachable, mellow, tasty, for $40 or less, you can't go wrong. Like, it's a fantastic bottle of bourbon, and I've recommended it tons of times. I'll continue to recommend it. But all of that being said, that's kind of where I land on these spirits competitions. So let me know what you guys think about the spirits competitions. I mean, I'm curious, am I way off base here, or is this similar to what you're hearing / experiencing when you try what they're doing and what they're recommending? I don't know. But let's leave the episode with some Q&As. So as you might know, I do Q&As in every single episode. You can submit a question if you are a patron. So if you're part of the Patreon page, join the Discord. You can just link up your Discord profile to your Patreon profile, and it'll automatically put you into the Discord channels. There's a Q&A channel, and you can drop questions in whenever you want. If it pops into your head, throw it in the Q&A Discord, and I will put it on the next script. Whatever script I'm writing at that given moment, I'll throw it on there. So these are this week's questions. Thank you so much for submitting questions to the patrons. I really appreciate you guys. So, the first question is, are flavored whiskeys taboo in the community, or to each their own? This is a tough one. This is a loaded question. The answer is almost yes and no. What I mean by that is, they are not taboo in the sense that anybody's going to judge you for drinking them. I drink flavored whiskeys sometimes, and I have nothing against people who drink flavored whiskey. It's one of those things. It's just like ice versus no ice, sweetener versus no sweetener, Coke versus no Coke mixed into your whiskey. Drink it how you like it, right? Whatever you enjoy the most is what you should be drinking. That said, the yes portion of that, the okay, yeah, they're kind of taboo portion of that, is not that they're bad or negative. It is that they are put aside as a separate category in most conversation. So most of the time, if you ask somebody the best whiskey they've ever had, who is an avid whiskey drinker, they're not even going to consider flavored whiskeys. Like, that's not the thing that we're talking about. It is classified with the TTB usually as, I think it's spirit specialty. I used to know these designations off the top of my head when I was looking into this stuff a lot, but there's a different designation that's like a specialty spirit. Think Fireball, think things like that. It's different from what we're talking about with like a straight whiskey or a straight bourbon or a straight rye. So, not taboo in a negative way, taboo in a like just othered way. Like, this is a different thing that we're kind of talking about. It's almost, I've compared it this way, and this is almost too harsh of a metaphor. It's less harsh than this, but it's almost the same idea as if you were talking about cigars that you liked, and somebody started talking about either cigarettes that they liked or vape flavors that they liked, something like that. That's a little bit more extreme because like cigars and cigarettes are so different, and cigars and vapes are so different. That's a more extreme version, but kind of in that same realm where it's like, well, I'm not judging you for this other thing that you like, but it's kind of an other thing. It's kind of not what we're usually talking about. So I don't want to put anybody down for enjoying flavored whiskeys, and I would say I think there's a good number of whiskey drinkers who take their whiskey seriously, do blind tastings, do things like that, and also really enjoy flavored whiskey. Me being one of them, right? So I'm not putting it down in any way. I'm just saying it's one of those kind of read the room things. Because here's what I don't want to happen. I don't want to say, no, it's not taboo at all. Drink whatever you like. And then you're talking to like some management at your work about whiskey, and they're talking about a 15-year-old Scotch that they love from this region of Scotland. And you're like, yeah, that's kind of like I love Fireball. That's where it's like you're not quite reading the room. Like, they probably are going to be like, okay, like, yeah, we're talking about a different thing here. It totally depends on the person, and I'm trying to protect you from the snobs you might run into. But overall in the community, you'll find most of the community is very accepting of it, and most people have one or two flavored whiskeys that they drink, that they enjoy. And me being one of those people, I used to always love, which I haven't had in a long time, Wild Turkey American Honey Sting. It's like a honey ghost pepper, I think, flavor, or honey habanero flavor, something like that. And I really like that. I also like the peanut butter flavored ones. I think those are good. Not too big into the cinnamon ones like Fireball, but they're okay, and they're good in different mixed drinks. So nothing against it, but that's kind of, hopefully I walk that line carefully enough. Next question. Do you think one of those wine topper vacuum things would work for whiskey to prolong the bottle when it's low? Great question. So I actually want to do this. I want to take a brand new bottle of whiskey, divide it in half, and then on one of the bottles put a wine topper, on one of the bottles use the cork, and see what happens. And I'm probably going to do that. That'll probably be a video here soon. Maybe even a YouTube video. But here's what I will say. First of all, the wine topper vacuum. So if you don't know what they're talking about, there are these little toppers you can get for wine bottles that are meant to keep the wine for longer than if you just put a stopper in it. If you open up a wine bottle, it starts getting oxygen in it, changes the flavor. So they have these little things and you like pump it. It's almost like a little vacuum in it. It draws some of the air out and sucks onto the bottle so that it's stuck there. And the idea is it helps the wine last longer. So will that help whiskey last longer? I think theoretically, yes. Here's the problem. There's a couple problems. The first is, I don't know if it's going to fit most whiskey bottles. I feel like you have to have a whiskey bottle that is the shape of a wine bottle, at least at the top portion of it, right? So it may not fit, and it also may not perfectly fit. So it might fit enough for you to put it on there, but actually it's letting air in more than the cork maybe. I don't know. I haven't tried this. This is just kind of my theory. So all that being said, if you can get it to be a good fit, I think theoretically it would help. But I feel like, and I think this goes for wine as well, it depends how much of it you've drank, because if there's mostly air left in that bottle, then it's not really there's no way it's going to pull out all of the oxygen. So you're still going to get some interaction with the air, which is what changes the flavor. So like if you've got a bottle that's maybe not 90, maybe it's got like 3 or 4 glasses left. So it's got, a few inches of whiskey in the bottom, which is like a substantial amount. But you've got 6 or 8 inches of air in the top. The wine vacuum topper thingy is probably going to pull some of that air out and help, but probably not enough that it's going to make too substantial of an impact. So that's the impression that I get. But that being said, I think it'd be a great experiment to do with exactly half a bottle. So what I'm probably going to do is next time I have a bottle that is that shape where it's going to work, I'm probably going to, once it empties, buy another one of it and then divide it perfectly in half and then keep the brand new cork that I have in the brand new bottle I just bought and then put a wine stopper on the one that had the old cork and see which one works better. I think that'd be a fun experiment to do. So I'm hopefully going to do that here soon, but those are just a few of the issues that I see with it. I definitely don't think it's a miracle cure by any means. I do think it could potentially help / prolong. If you're looking for ways to preserve it though, what could help even more is transferring it to a smaller bottle where it's going to get less oxygen. So if you have a 375 milliliter bottle, that's exactly half of a fifth. That's going to help. If you have a 200 milliliter bottle, once it gets down to 200, that's going to help. Or even if you just have small decanters, those are going to help. So keep that in mind, that there are still solutions, and the big one being lowering the ratio of air in the bottle to whiskey in the bottle. That's going to make a pretty big difference. So that's what I would recommend. So anyhow, those are my 2 cents. Once again, I'll throw the links down in the description for the stuff that I mentioned during this episode. That's all that I've got, though. So thank you guys for submitting questions. Thanks for watching this episode of Whiskey Noobs. I'll leave you with learn to drink, drink to learn. Hi there. Since you're still here, I'm going to assume that you enjoyed the show, in which case, please just take a moment to leave a 5-star rating or review on whatever platform it is that you get your podcast from. Subscribe to the podcast because that actually really helps out. And also, if you're on YouTube, ring that notification bell. If you really like this show, though, the best way that you can support it is just checking out that Patreon page. It's at the description in the show notes or in the description on YouTube. Or you can go to patreon.com/whiskeynoobs. That is the absolute best way to support the show, but also just spreading the word to other people who you think might be interested. I am so grateful for all of the forms of support that you guys give. And please, 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 most importantly, always drink responsibly. Thank you guys all so much. And in case nobody else tells you today, I got to tell you, God bless.